So in today's video, we are going to start working on our level reload trigger as well as our level loader. So what this means is when we start the game will obviously start on level 1 once you press the play button, if there is a play button later on, if we do that. But once you've completed a level, we want some sort of manager to figure out that you've completed it, as well as load in the next level and then move the current cube into the correct starting position. So if you've watched the our maze game that we're working on, it's pretty much similar to that, the way that we're going to change the starting position and move our current cube in the scene to the correct starting position, because we're not going to take our cube out of the game, because then we just have to instantiate it back into the scene. There's no point. So we'll just go and move it into the right location. And then something else we're going to do today, well, first, before we do all of that, we are going to work on a level reloader trigger, because if you fall off the edge of the platforms, so look here, we have our platforms here, this is our scene. If you fall over the edge, so if I play this and I move our cube, also the cube movement is not working properly because I added a rigid body onto it, so but ignore that for now. But if you eventually get to this state here where the cube has now fallen over the edge, we need some sort of way to reload the game. So to do that, let's go and add a empty object, which we will call level reload trigger. And then on that trigger, we will add a box collider. It needs to be a 3D. Where is it? Okay, let's just go reset that. Okay, so now we need to go and edit it, and we can make it bigger. We can make it slightly narrow or less height. And then we can, it doesn't really have to be that big, but let's just do this. So it only really needs to cover the entire level, so that when you fall over, the cube should trigger this collider as soon as it goes through it. So because our level is a lot smaller than the trigger box, it should work fine. I'm just going to go and reset it to 0, 0, and 0, so that means it should be in the middle of our level, assuming we instantiate our level at the correct point, which we should do. So here's our box collider. Now what we need to do is we need to add a script onto that to, when it triggers it, we need, because we're gonna call, I think we might, actually I'm trying to think, do we need to use a collider, not a collider, a collision or a trigger? I think we'll stick with to trigger, so we'll tick is triggered, but then let's go and add a trigger script onto it. So we can go and say reload level, and this script will be for reloading the level only. So we can open that, hopefully that opens, and then in here for now we will just get rid of our start and update, and then we'll bring in our what's it called, on trigger on. Why don't I have autocomplete? Let's see. Let's try that again. Okay, there you go. On trigger enter. It's not 2D. It's not a 2D game, so we don't need the on trigger enter 2D. So on here, let's just go and say print cube reloaded. It's not going to reload, but we will print out a message so that we can figure out if this actually works. So I'm going to put this over here, and now we should be able to fall off the edge as well as get some sort of message, or get our message printed out in our console. So let's go test that out. Okay, that's not supposed to happen. Let's just play that again and see, because that should only print hold on. Okay, I know why, because we need to lower that down. So that needs to be lowered down. We'll go put it at -3. And then we'll go, actually, let's go do that again, because it doesn't save when you're in gameplay mode. So put that at -3. And now we can save it. And then we can play it. And now we shouldn't get anything printed out, which we don't. And now if we go and rotate our cube, and it falls down, you can see that we get that cube reloaded message there. So that's working. So whenever we go through that trigger box, we can simply reload the game. So this is going to be responsible for reload level, as well as we can't do that. Let's just go reload, because we can't do that because that's the name of our class. So we can just say reload, and then we need to create a private void with the same name, reload. Okay, and then in here, this is where we are going to actually, yeah, we will eventually have to reload the game, but because we don't have anything in our game other than our platforms and our cube that we roll along those platforms, we could just go and reposition the cube at the start of the game. But because later in the game, when we start adding in like power-ups and different type of game objects, we would probably want to reload the game so that when you restart the level, it starts with all of the different power-ups that is on that level. But for now, let's go save that. And we need to figure out what is the best way of moving our cube to the correct location. So I believe in our level, we should have a starting point and an end point, which we do. On our scripts, we have a move script and a reload script. Okay, so we haven't really done much. So let's see. Okay, so what we want to do now is we need to write a method somewhere that gets the level ready. So I'm just going to create an empty object here, and this is going to be called a level manager. So this script here is also going to be called level manager. And this script will be responsible for setting up the level. So not only will it be responsible for instantiating the new level into the scene once you've created or once you've finished the current level you're on, it will also be responsible for moving the cube into the correct starting position. And then hopefully once we've done that method, we can reuse it in our reload trigger method. We can just call it from our reload trigger, reload level script. So let's get started on that. So in our level manager, let's see, we can go and create that script, which we did. We can go and open it rather. So in our level manager, we need to make a method called public so we can access it from a different class. Void, because it's not going to return anything. Public void. What can we call this? It needs to put our cube on the start location. So good name for that could be, let's just go move to start. If I come up with something different later, we can change it, but that's going to be fine. That will be fine for now. And then in our reload method, I'm trying to think. They might just be easier just to reload. Might be easier to do it all in one method. Actually, no, we won't do it in one method because we might introduce a setback power-up which moves your cube back to the start. So we'll leave it a move to the start method, a method on its own, so that we can call this method if we need to, or if we decide to implement that power-up. So in our reload level, we can go and get a reference to that script. So that's going to be a serialized field. It's going to be, what's going to be? It's going to be game object, and this is going to be called level manager. Then we need to have a level manager script, and we'll call this level manager script. Okay, so now we need to bring back our start method so that at the start of our game we can go and get these. So our level manager script is going to be equal to get component. Actually, it's going to be level manager dot get component level manager. So we're going to get the script off of this component, and we are going to assign that to our level manager script. Okay, so that should be fine. So that will allow us to reload, or not reload, but that will allow us to access our move to start method by typing in, what's it going to be? It's going to be level manager script dot move to start. So that should be it. That should allow us to move our cube right back to the starting location. Obviously it's not going to do it now because we haven't implemented it in our move to start method here, but that should work fine. And then actually, you know what, I'm going to just test that out by putting the print method in our move to start method. So print, let's just type working. Cool. So let's test this out. So that should be fine, that should be fine, and I believe that should be fine. So let's test it. Hopefully this works, because then we can try and figure out how to get our start point and our end point. So first we need to drag these in. So our level manager we can drag in there, and that should be fine. So that should work. So now if we go and move our cube and fall off, it should get that message, which does. Okay, so that's good. So that's working. Now to make that actually work, we need to go and figure out how to get our starting point. So our starting point is at, for this level, it's at -2 and 2 on the X and Z axis and 0 on the Y axis. But our cube, wait, what? Our cube should I believe that should be, that's at 0. And our cube, how is our cube at, oh, that's why, because it's not at our level 1 parent object should be at, yeah, that's at -0.6, so that's slightly below. Okay, so we have to take that into account when we go and spawn our cube. So our cube is going to be at, oh no, so we made it easier by putting our level slightly below, so that when we go and spawn our cube, we can simply take our starting point position and just simply paste it onto our cube, because it should have the exact same starting point values. Okay, so that was smart. That was good thinking. That saves us a lot of calculating, well, not really, but saves us a little bit of time. So let's go and do that. So now that we've got that, we need to, let's put a tag on those. So platform. So I'm going to change these tags to starting point. Add tag, let's go start point. And this one will be endpoint. So they, oh, let's do that again. Okay, so we can go and attach those starting points, and we can override that, and then endpoint and override that. Okay, so this is probably not the best way to do it, but it's how we're going to do it for now, and then later on in the game when things get a bit more complicated and we decide to change things, we will probably change it later on. Okay, so we need to go at the start of our game. When we load in our first level, we need to bring back our start method in our level manager, because this is going to be responsible for loading in load level. Okay, so we need a method that's going to be responsible to load our first level, which is going to be this one, load level. So this will be a public, actually let's make it private for now. Okay, so we are eventually going to have an array of game objects, so we can just create that now and say serialized field game object levels. So we can, when we go and load in our level, we will need a this is going to be a transform, because we'll need a position to load that level into. So we can go and say level position. Then we also need a starting position. So we can go and say, this is not going to be serialized field because we'll have to get this from the method whenever we go and load in a new level. So what we can do is create a position, actually a transform, because it's going to be a position transform. Starting position, and then it's we don't need our end position now, so we'll go and save that. And then in our start method, we can use our level to figure out which one of the child objects is in fact the starting position. So let's go and drag this in quickly and just see where we're at. So on our, I believe it's our level manager. Level manager, so we only have one level at the moment, I think, which is not even a prefab. So let's just go and create a prefab out of that. So I'm going to create a folder and call this levels. And then we can drag that into our levels folder. So there we have our first level. Okay. I'm just going to tag this with a tag called level, just for future references, because we might need it in our start method now. So here is our first level. Okay, so on our level manager, we can now go and say one. We'll just say one for now because we only have one level. And then we will drag that in there. Our level position will have to be at 0 minus I'm going to copy this component. So copy position. Actually, let's just copy the entire component and we will paste component values there. So that should put our level at the exact location that we want it to be. So let's go disable that. And then in our start method here, when we go and load our level in, we can use our starting position that we just created. Sorry, hold on. That's wrong. That shouldn't be like that. Level manager, level position needs to be dragged in there. So that is going to be responsible for holding our point where we want to spawn in our levels. Okay, so that's fine. So let's save that. What we can do, just for now, we're not going to loop through the array just because we only have one level. So in our load level here, we're going to go and say instantiate. This will be levels, and it's going to be the first one in the array, so index 0. Where do we want it? We want it to be at level position. And I believe that's it. Let's go and see if that works. So that should spawn in our level for us. Assuming that That's correct. So let's go try that. We should get our level where we wanted it to. Okay, so that's working. We now have our level spawning into our scene, which is great. So we can use this to figure out where our starting position is. So now that we know that we've spawned in, well, now that we know which level we spawned in, we can use the level and the level index number to figure out where our start position is. So I am going to replace this print method here by saying actually, let's do this. Let's go and say game object current level. Okay, and then before we instantiate our level, we will say current level is equal to level at 0. Just for, that's not what I meant, levels. Later on, we will change this to not be 0 because we will eventually have more levels. But now, because we only have one, we can just do that just for testing purposes. Okay, so when we go and move our cube to the start, what we want to do is we want to go and first of all, we need a reference to our cube because without that, we can't really move it anyway. So let's go and say serialized field game object cube. So because our cube and our level manager is always going to be in our game scene, we should be able to just drag them in. So our cube, we can just drag into there. Save that. So now I am going to move our cube slightly that way so that we can see it actually working. So when we call our move to start method, we can move our cube to that location. So here we can go and say cube dot position dot transform dot position is going to be equal to our actually it's going to be equal to our level. Actually, that's wrong. Before we do that, we need to find out where our starting position is. So let's go and do that. So we need to go and get our starting point off of our level by accessing the child object of that level. So because we have our current method, I think we can go and say current level dot find dot get component in children. Actually, I can't remember how to do that. Let's go and look it up quickly. Chrome. Let's do this. Unity get child game object. Let's bring that here so you can see it. Transform like how to find a child of a game object or a script attached to it. Okay, you can find the first child of a game object with get child. Yeah, we don't want to do that. We want to find it by tag. So let's see. Do we ever find? Let's see. Dot find. Dot get components in children. Let's get rid of that because I don't think we need that. Dot. Let's type that better. Unity get child object by tag. Let's be more specific. Okay, so how to find child with tag? Let's do that. Find component in child with tag. So let's try that. So current level, does that work? Dot find component in child with tag. Nope, that doesn't work. Dot find. Okay, so that doesn't work. Let's try something else. Find, no, that doesn't work. You know what, we're going to use a for loop for now. So let's make this work quickly, because we're running out of time. Okay, so for each transform child in current level dot transform, that needs to be if child dot tag is equal to, what did we say our tag was for our starting point? Is start point. Okay, so if our tag is equal to, there needs to be exactly the same start point, then we can go and say, what is it, starting position dot, no, starting position is equal to child dot position, child, wait, why is that not working? Starting position, maybe that needs to be, okay, this might need to be vector 3. Okay, so we'll save that, and then that should be fine, because that should give us access to our starting point. But what I'm thinking now is that might not finish before we go and execute the next part. So what we can do for now, let's just do this inside of our for loop. Might have to change it later, but what we can do now is we can go and move our cube. So here we can go and say cube is going to be equal, cube dot position, no, cube dot transform dot position is going to be equal to our starting position. Okay, so let's hope for the best that this does work, and let's test it. So we should see, let's just make sure we called it. Okay, so load level, move to start. Okay, so we haven't done that. Okay, so let's go and test it to see if it works. So this should be, it should work. So when our cube falls, because it's going to fall down because it's no longer, okay, so it does work. So as soon as we go and move our cube over the edge and it falls down, and it triggers that box, it goes and puts it back in the start position. But we need to try and figure out why this is, why, because I know why, because we have a rigid body on our cube that it's having that effect on it. So we need to go and figure out how to get rid of that, to see if we can get rid of our rigid body without losing the gravity of our box. I don't know if you can do that, but yeah. That is pretty much it for today's episode. So if you enjoyed it, thank you for watching it, and please do give it a like. And also, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do that so we can build up our following, or my following, and hopefully progress this channel. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today. So I think maybe tomorrow we might get back to our cube maze game, and then probably the day after that we'll get back to our island survival. But that's pretty much it today. So thanks for watching again, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.